From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay. Welcome to Super Talk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because as you hear me say every single week, we're the capital of the outdoors in America. You may find certain aspects that are better than Mississippi, but when you add it all together, the Mississippi Delta, the Northeast Hills, what's happening in the middle of this great state, and of course on the coast, backwater and offshore fishing, when you put it all together, there's no better place to enjoy the outdoors than Mississippi. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful Super Talk Mississippi Radio Network, or on Super Talk TV at C Spire TV. But if you're listening on Facebook, YouTube, or your favorite podcast, it is June the 20th, 2022. I hope you're having a great hot Monday. Man, it is hot outside. Be careful. For sure, be careful if you're outside. It's going to be a hot week in Mississippi. On the coast, it's forecast to be over 100 degrees Thursday. But at my place in the Mississippi Delta, and for those of you who are there, you know this, starting Wednesday, it is forecast to be 100 degrees for 5 straight days. And then, of course, if you add the heat index factors into that, we're talking about considerably hotter than that. So it's hot. I noticed there were a few jokes on the internet that I wanted to share with you. One said, it's so hot, I saw a bird pull a worm out of the ground with an oven mitt. Someone else said that chickens are laying hard-boiled eggs. Fire ants are really on fire. They're actually on fire. It's so hot outside that cows are giving evaporated milk. That's hot. And, it was another hot weekend here in coastal Mississippi. I had my granddaughter Mila's third birthday here at our house. It was the party outside. And I have to be honest with you, I don't remember feeling heat quite like that before. It was really incredible. I mentioned last week that my son Jordan and I put out some crab traps over the weekend about a week ago, and we've been picking the crabs up and rebaiting the crab traps over during the week. And, I have to tell you, I don't remember ever catching so many large crabs. I mean, they were really big, and the meat inside them was super thick and had this kind of a sweet taste to them. You've heard me talk about my friend Mark Creech before. I nicknamed him MacGyver many years ago. He can fix or he can cook anything. But his crab boiling recipe is one of the best I have ever tasted. We've used it for years. It's a never fail recipe. We in fact posted about the little Matthews crab boil on the Super Talk Outdoors Facebook page. So go there and take a look at life on Biloxi's Back Bay. And while you're there, like our page. We'd really appreciate it. We have a great show today. We're going to be visiting with Todd Adkins, who's Vice President of Government Affairs from the Sportsmen Alliance, and we're going to talk about some new policy changes that are going to affect the use of lead outdoors, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And the second part of the show, we're going to have Mike Stepp, who's the Park Administrator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He is currently at the Paul B. Johnson State Park, somewhere I spent a lot of my time growing up. I look forward to catching up with Mike here shortly. So without any further ado, let's move over to my friend Todd Adkins and just say, first of all, how you doing, my friend?
Ricky, it's great to see you. It's really great.
Hey, so we're going to talk about some of these policy changes here in just a second, but and I want to give people an understanding of what the Sportsmen's Alliance is. But you've literally made a career working in this sort of important area of sportsmen's rights and just keeping our ability to enjoy the outdoors. Where did that love come from?
Well, it's one of those things. Maybe it's a bit of a mystery, but I grew up in a very rural area. I kindly refer to myself as a redneck because I grew up hunting, fishing, and trapping and farming. And yeah, my neck was sunburned all the time. People always say, well, you're not, but you get my point. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, and I always had a shotgun, 22 rifle, fishing pole, set of traps with me. It just has always been the second love of my life at the end of the day, just something I've always had a deep and abiding passion for. And once I kind of got interested in politics, I said, well, I know who I want to protect. I'm going to be real personal about this. I want to protect me and my friends. and my family and what we do and what we care about. So at the end of the day, it's just always been with me. I have worked a little bit outside the arena, if you will, but not for very long. I keep coming back to work in the political arena on behalf of folks who hunt, folks who fish, and folks who trap. Again, protecting me and mine, if you will.
Yeah. So where is in the middle of nowhere?
Well, for me, that was Southwest Michigan, rural area of Southwest Michigan, farming community in Southwest Michigan. But since, when I turned 18, I actually moved to Maryland's Eastern Shore to become a waterfowl guide. Waterfowling has always been kind of number one for me. And that was just a dream I had from reading whatever, Field and Stream, Sports Afield, about Maryland's great Eastern Shore. And I said, I can't believe it. You can get a job hunting. I got to do this. So since that time, I've lived all over this great country, including the Deep South. I probably have favored the Deep South. My son and my grandchildren continue to live in Memphis. So I've spent a lot of time down there and probably, as you said, have appreciated the vast abundance for somebody like me of opportunities down there more than any other. They're truly, we often take our backyard for granted, but I know a lot of people in Mississippi don't because they know what they have. It truly is remarkable, the hunting, fishing, outdoor community generally in that state. So I've enjoyed living in the South probably more than any other place.
Yeah, it is a special place, and I've been fortunate throughout my life to have had the opportunity to travel all over the United States and kind of take it all in. And boy, I mean, it's a beautiful country. There's so many diverse opportunities to enjoy the outdoors. But when you come home, I never have taken it for granted what we have here in Mississippi. I've always soaked it up, and I owe that to my father, my grandfathers. Everybody's got a story of where they got the outdoors from, and if they didn't get it from their fathers or their grandfathers, they got it from a friend or someone. And once they got hooked, even if they were hooked as an adult, they stay hooked. You and I chatted a little bit actually about that during the time we were off the air. The outdoors is literally the ultimate neutralizer, isn't it?
It truly, it's remarkable. As much as I've worked in politics, I've obviously, as all of us have, we've seen that in the public square in recent years. It's gotten extremely divided, right? Well, when it comes to the traditions that we all embrace, there's much, much less of that, thankfully. That this is a place, the outdoors, you're on the back of a boat, you're sitting in a duck blind, whatever it is, right? You're just at the local store talking about a big buck you saw in a given field or whatever. It truly is a place where the political barriers that separate us on so many issues can be still knocked down to a great degree. And, it is my great concern going forward, right, that we just keep it that way, that we understand this is a place for all of us to get together. And all of us have the common ground of this great enjoyment we have, engaging in these traditions that mean so much to all of us. And it's why I can get up every single morning, because I understand when we look across our landscape, the abundant fish and wildlife resources we have, are largely due to our community and hunters and anglers, kicking in every step of the way and being the backbone. And it's not just that we're attached to these activities. We understand how fish and wildlife management is supposed to work and how it has worked for us. So I hope that it remains among the last places where we can kind of join together for the common good, irrespective of the political team of the day, right?
No doubt. It's unfortunate we live in a place in our country's history where the polarizing ends too often describe or determine what the debate's going to be. And then you add into that social media that uses advanced artificial intelligence to determine what's in our news feeds. And unfortunately, it makes it appear that everyone in our news feeds agrees with us. And that obviously adds to the division in a lot of ways. It's it's a strange place we find ourselves in, but at the end of the day, most of America is somewhere in the middle, and that's a good thing. Coming back to Mississippi, though, I tell you, when we just passed the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund this year, the Mississippi Legislature,
Right.
and I had lunch last week with the Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, and he's super excited about it. In my conversations with the Speaker of the House, he's super excited about it, about fully funding it for subsequent years in the $20 million range, and then the opportunity to match that with significant federal funds. Watching that take place, watching that legislation take place, and seeing so many people across the political spectrum come together for the good of Mississippi, it was something to behold. Hey, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Todd Adkins and talk about some issues that have come up as it relates to the use of lead. It's very important. We'll continue that conversation with Todd Adkins from the Sportsmen's Alliance.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. We're having a terrific conversation with my friend Todd Adkins, who's with the Sportsmen's Alliance. He's the Vice President of Governmental Affairs. He does a lot of these conversations these days. They are super, super passionate about the outdoors and the role that sportsmen play to help preserve and conserve the outdoors. And anytime there's a threat to that, you're going to see organizations like the Sportsmen's Alliance come to the forefront and do what they can to kind of make sure we have that we preserve our rights as outdoorsmen, hunting, fishing, trapping, whatever that might be. Okay, so Todd, coming back to you, tell me about the Sportsmen's Alliance.
Sure. So we're an organization, and I'm going to keep it real simple. Like, the legal technicalities don't really matter to people. Here's our mission. Our mission, we were formed in 1977 to fight the antis. And by the antis, I mean the anti-hunting groups like Humane Society of the United States and others who really just want to end us. And we know that. We know this, right? And we know that at the end of the day, year after year, they continue to seek leverage by passing laws at both the national and state levels to do various and sundry things with one goal in mind. And that goal is simple: end all hunting. So the Sportsmen's Alliance was put together after a ballot initiative had been qualified in the state of Ohio to end all trapping. And trapping is among the issues we continue to fight for today. And we often will come to a state where the antis have promoted or published or gathering signatures on a ballot initiative. It's not a problem that Mississippi has to worry about, but in a lot of other states in this country, especially on the East and West Coasts, they come into the state to pass a ballot initiative to ban X, Y, or Z. Again, with the overall goal to end all hunting. And on that point, one thing I would like to share, because I had the great fortune of working on behalf of gun owners in the state of Mississippi. It was just a fantastic time to work politics on that issue in the state. So I developed a lot of strong relationships. And I've lived in states where I don't have to worry about it as much as other states. And Mississippi, yes, is one of those states, and we can be very thankful for that. But 30 years ago, I was standing in Washington state and was scolded by a hunter in the room. Todd, this is Washington. We don't have to worry about that stuff here. Well, if anybody knows anything about Washington these days, they will immediately recognize Washington has become a real problem. So my point is, we all have to remain ever vigilant and careful and understand that Humane Society and the other anti-hunting groups, they want it all. Whatever the issue is, we have to be vigilant, stand together, and not say, oh, we're good here, or I'm good here. They're coming after some other issue. They're not coming after me. They're not coming after deer hunters or turkey hunters or whatever it is, right? Standing together is how we protect ourselves going forward, right? So that's what Sportsmen's Alliance does, is we see a problem either in the Congress or somewhere in the states, and we head out there to fight the antis. Our mission statement is much longer than that. But like I said, I'll boil it down to just that. We fight. And like I said, for me, that means getting up every single day and fighting for me and the things I care about. So,
you know, we've seen from the Obama administration to the Trump administration and back to the Biden administration, this ever-changing philosophies as it relates to the outdoors and sportsmen. And of course, the issue of lead is just, I mean, it's one of many important issues that are on the table currently. But why don't you frame the issue as it relates to lead today, and the fact that they're not really quoting any science related to it, but still have this determination to do something that is negative to sportsmen? Talk to me about that issue.
Right. A couple details just to get them on the table so we understand where this came from. Last week, the Fish and Wildlife Service under the Biden administration issued a phase-in of a lead ban, the beginnings, the front edge of a phase-in of a lead ban on national wildlife refuges, hunting, fishing on national wildlife refuges. So that means if you're hunting, that would be non-toxic shot and or rifle cartridges, right, bullets. And if you're fishing, that means sinkers and everything else, no lead. Well, you have to look at the grand picture, because this rule in and of itself talks about the future, talks about a phase-in on these properties, not those properties. But when you put it in the grand context, you begin to understand that the Center for Biological Diversity, right? This is one of the premier these days, I hate to use that word, but the top anti-hunting environmental extremist organizations has been seeking to ban lead use on public lands from the get-go, and they file suit. So after the Trump administration had expanded hunting and fishing opportunities in 2020 on a host of refuges, CBD, the Center for Biological Diversity, actually filed suit. The main center of that lawsuit was the use of lead in ammunition and fishing tackle. Okay? All right, so they file suit. The Fish and Wildlife Service actually agrees to enter into settlement negotiations with them about that just this past February, leaving us out in the dark. What's happening here? That we weren't consulted. Nobody was consulted. They were just going to talk about what they were going to do about this lawsuit. We know that CBD wants to ban all lead, right? What is their grand purpose? To end all hunting. Right? This doesn't have anything to do with the environment, doesn't have anything to do with wildlife. The object is to end all hunting. So then last week, when we see the Biden administration come forward with a new rule, which is kind of a step in CBD's direction to ban lead at some future date, 2026, in ammunition and tackle, we know the jig is up. We know what's going on here. And we can't ever forget that under the Obama administration, in fact, the last day of the Obama administration, the current director at that time of Fish and Wildlife Service banned lead on national wildlife refuges, just as basically like an executive order. It's banned, can't use it, hunting, fishing, no longer. And what you said is so critical here. This rule that Fish and Wildlife Service issued last week contains no scientific data, no reference to specific studies that show lead ammo or lead fishing tackle poses a significant risk to wildlife populations. It's almost like they just take it as a given. Lead is toxic and thereby it's a problem. Well, a basic tenet of effective fish and wildlife management is science leads the decision making based on population level dynamics. None of that in this rule. So when you step back to 30,000 feet and think about this, it all comes clearly in focus. CBD wants lead gone. They want hunting gone, right? They want sportsmen gone from the landscape. And we see this rulemaking from last week as just another piece in that grand scheme coming together.
Todd, what can we do about it?
Well, thankfully, in a way, that this was a federal rulemaking, we call it, and everybody and anybody can put together comments about this proposed rulemaking. It's not a technical rulemaking. As I said, there's no scientific formulas in it. They just state on these refuges, we're going to have a phase out of lead ammunition and tackle. And they can go to our website, and if they're members of other organizations like Shooting Sports Foundation, Safari Club, they've posted on their websites too. Go to our website, Sportsmen's, that's with an E, sportsmensalliance.org, and we've got a post about this with directions about how you can comment. You can also reach out to your elected officials at the national level and say, hey, Congressman, hey, U.S. Senator, this is not cool. Fish and Wildlife Service is just running roughshod over sportsmen. And again, we're not saying that we disagree with the scientific method. We're saying you have to provide the scientific method when you make a decision that's this drastic in scope. Because we know everybody out there who shoots, hunts, buys ammo for any reason, wow, it's sky high. And it's been sky high for a while now. Well, let's add then a lead ban on top of that, and everybody has to convert over to non-toxic type materials. That's going to mean more expense, more shortages, etc. You have to show us the science of that necessity for Americans, hunters and shooters, to go through that. We accept science, right? That's what Fish and Wildlife Management is all about. We understand it, but you can't just do something because it's on your wish list without providing evidence that it's necessary.
Todd, it's going to be interesting. The thing about changing from one administration to the other, from Democrats to Republicans and back to Democrats, is that we may be in a cycle where we're constantly going through putting these policies in place and then taking them away again, and so on and so on. But listen, I'll have you back again. I've enjoyed really getting to know you. The Sportsmen's Alliance is doing incredibly important work. We got to stay focused on not letting the drip happen, because that's what leads to total bans. Yeah. But anyway, for now, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, Todd.
Thank you, Ricky. I appreciate you.
You bet. You bet. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. We'll see you out there. From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors as we listen to my friend Steve Azar's One Mississippi, which incidentally was signed into law as the new state song last week in this big ceremony in Jackson with the governor and lieutenant governor and speaker of the House and a lot of Steve's family. I was so proud of Steve, but I'm really proud for Mississippi. We needed to turn the page from that old song that was not appropriate for Mississippi any longer. Steve's new song, One Mississippi, is the ultimate song. If you haven't really heard the whole thing, go to YouTube and look up Steve Azar, One Mississippi. Watch the full video. I think you'll be glad you did, but it's a great song that covers every corner of Mississippi. I also enjoyed that conversation about the Sportsmen's Alliance. We need organizations like that are standing up for sportsmen across the United States. And we'll have Todd back on and continue the conversation in the near future. Okay, so now let's shift gears and move over to my friend Mike Stepp, who's a park administrator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, he's actually at the Paul B. Johnson State Park in Hattiesburg. And man, I spent half my life there growing up. That was a super special place. But without any further ado, how you doing, my friend?
Having a good day, working hard as usual.
I bet, look, we're going to talk. You've been to a lot of state parks in Mississippi, and we're lucky in that we have so many incredible state parks across this state, and a lot of effort actually this year by the legislature to continue to kind of step up the opportunity they have to invest in our state parks, which I think we can't invest enough, because it's really this incredible crown jewel we have here as far as enjoying the outdoors. But it's hot outside, isn't it? You having to deal with that with your people and the people who visit there?
Yes, sir. But it's nice to be able to get into the water and enjoy the lake and boating and that kind of thing. So it helps to have a nice lake at your state park.
Well, look, growing up, my family had an RV. We always had an RV. And I think my father's favorite place to go was Paul B. Johnson State Park. So we'd go up there, especially in the summers, and we'd have the RV there. It gave him a chance to kind of drive back and forth while the family kind of enjoyed time there during the day, so he could also work. But You know, it hasn't changed a whole lot over all these years. That's what's so cool about it. I can go drive through there today and have memories of what was going on there, 40, 50 years ago. That's one of the draws of that. The family traditions that are connected to Paul B. Johnson State Park, or really any state park in Mississippi for that matter.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of families that just return religiously for vacations and family outings, family reunions. It's a great place to come to. Really, all the state parks share that in common because everybody's got a following of people that go to that particular park or that particular destination. And so it's always nice to have new people come in also.
Tell me about, how did you, I see that you've been, and we'll give people an idea of where some of those state parks are. You've been in a really unique position now that you're at Paul B. Johnson State Park. Looking back, you have a good perspective on other parks across the state of Mississippi. Where did your love of this line of work come from?
I grew up in Sardis, Mississippi, which was next to John Kyle State Park. I started there in 1986 and just really loved it. I loved the atmosphere, loved the people. I started out mowing grass and weed eating, painting buildings, and just worked my way up the ladder through the years of moving from one position to another. And it's been a great career and a great time.
So George P. Corser State Park, John Kyle State Park, you mentioned Buccaneer, LaFleur's Bluff, Wall-Doxie, Shepherd State. And the last 5 years you've been there at Paul B. Johnson State Park. You have a cool perspective. We're lucky to have so many great state parks in the state, aren't we?
Yes, sir. It's a good state. I travel a lot and I like to see other state parks and Mississippi, and I think we do a really good job of keeping things up and keeping things going to attract customers and people. It's a really good time.
Do you have a favorite among all of those?
I have multiple favorites. I like to visit Tishomingo. Trace State Park is just great. It's peaceful at Trace State Park. Buccaneers probably my passion. I like the South. I've stayed in the South for longer than anywhere else. I lived at Gaucher, Waveland, and here in Paul B. Johnson. These are some great areas to be in. And I like Carco State Park. It's nice and iconic there with the old CCC camps and stuff. There's many state parks, and all of them have a big diversity of range of what's there.
Buccaneer State Park. When I think about Buccaneer State Park, and as a child went there many times, when you think about the hurricanes that have hit and all the other challenges the Buccaneers had over the years, it probably gets the award for being the most resilient state park in the state of Mississippi by far, wouldn't you think?
It definitely has its fun times with all the hurricanes that come. People get upset when you tell them they have to leave for a hurricane and then nothing happens, but then they're really glad when they leave and something does happen.
Yeah. Ooh, man. Of course, there's a lot of theories about whether the flood controls over in Louisiana have impacted that area a little bit more these days than they used to. And there's probably some truth to that. Eventually, we'll have a better understanding of that. But yeah, Buccaneer is a special place, but really just about every one of these is special. But as far as I'm concerned, Paul B. Johnson has a special place. I went to University of Southern Mississippi, so not only did I grow up going there with my family, but when I was at Southern Mississippi, my girlfriend and I would come down from Hattiesburg and just enjoy the state park. You see a lot of people doing that, don't you?
Yes, sir. There's a lot of Southern Mississippi people that come here, and Camp Shelby plays a tremendous role here coming to the park, and locals. We have a large local following of people that camp and come to the cabins on a routine basis. 3 and 4 times a year they're out here visiting the park for sometimes weeks at a time, but it's typically the weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday is a normal trip.
So you've got have you added to the number of cabins that you have there over the years, or is it about the same number as it's been for a pretty good while?
Well, we have cottages that we rent out. There's 3 of those. We have 12 cabins that are 2 bedrooms, and then we have 2 duplex cabins that are you rent half the building, so they're duplexes. So with a large family, it lets you have 2 queen beds in one room and 2 queen beds in another room with a common screened-in porch. Makes it really nice.
Oh wow, that's good. So do those stay booked up most of the time?
We are a very busy park. Yes, sir. We every weekend is a challenge with all the people coming in and out, and we're even busy during the week. But the majority of times we are pretty busy on the weekends with campground and cabins.
What about the boat traffic? Is it? Do you have a limit to the number of boats that you allow on the lake there?
We don't have a per se limit. If it got dangerous, we'd have to stop some boats, but we don't have a number. But I've never had to close the lake in the last 5 years for any kind of traffic issues. Now, July 4th is always that wonderful time of year when everybody comes out, but there's so many people just anchored and enjoying the lake. Our lake is split into a fishing zone and a skiing zone. So we're able to handle a larger crowd because people can go to those fishing areas and just anchor and enjoy the day, versus the guys that want to ski go counterclockwise on the lake, and gives them some time to ski and not be hindered by the traffic. I guess it just keeps flowing. We don't have a traffic issue usually.
Yeah, I have just such a crystal clear memory of time on that lake. Still have that little country store there?
We have some stores outside the park, but none on the park at this time. We're actually trying to decide or find vendors that might be interested in doing something at a later date. Trying to change some things up and make things a little better here on the park.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. So if you think about the kind of things, I know we're going to talk about the fireworks displays, and we'll do that in the next segment here in just a second. But what's kind of the biggest issue you deal with these days at the park?
Traffic and keeping the facility clean and going. It's a everyday fun-filled day to keep all the attractions going and keep everybody happy.
I can only imagine, man. I tell you, one of the things, if you think about the beach down here, people do a good job of keeping the beach clean, but every now and then you'll have a group that won't pay attention and they'll litter and do whatever. I'm sure you face the same thing at the park there. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with my friend Mike Stepp, who's actually an administrator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks in the park area. He's actually located at Paul B. Johnson State Park. We'll talk about some upcoming fireworks displays and some other things that he's involved in. We'll see you after this break.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. We're talking state parks, and in particular, really, Paul B. Johnson State Park, because the administrator, who's been there about 5 years, he's been at many other state parks across the state of Mississippi. Mike Stepp, who's joining us today, he's a park administrator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. One of the things we were talking about during the break is that Highway 49 for so long, I would maybe 50, 60 years, really needed to be worked on. It was in some areas it was too much slope, and in other areas too many trees. And if you look at what's happened to 49 over the last several years, as they've continued this construction work to make it safer and to make it so you can get from Jackson to the coast faster, it's really done well. But actually, it's required them to do a lot of work at the entrance to Paul B. Johnson State Park. What's the status of the situation there now, Mike?
Luckily, they just got it opened up in front of the park, so now we have a new interchange in front of the park. We have an actual turning lane to exit into the park southbound, which has been needed for years. And they've also cut the hill down so it's a safer transition coming into the park for campers and boaters and that kind of thing.
Yeah, cutting the hills down. They cut a lot of hills down, actually, on that large stretch there. But I bet it's a lot safer now, huh?
It is. Before all the construction, we had trees on both sides of the median, and it was like you couldn't see, and everybody was just gunning it to get out into the highway. So this is much safer, much better, I think, in my opinion.
Very, very good. So look, 4th of July is always a busy time there. Tell me about some of the activities coming up on 4th of July.
We really just let the people come out here and enjoy the park, enjoy the barbecue and cooking. We usually draw a very large crowd. We count cars as they come in, so I don't have an actual people total, but we have 125 campsites. We have 19 cabins. We have 6 pavilions that hold anywhere from 40 to 75 people. All of those will be booked and used on top of the extra 3,000 to 4,000 people that show up to watch the fireworks show that occurs at 9 p.m. It's really a good show. It lasts for about 20 to 22 minutes each year. We have this long production, and it's usually pretty good to watch.
The stuff that you mentioned at the beginning, the pavilions, et cetera, all that is you lease out ahead of time. But what about picnic tables and all that? Is that first come, first serve?
The rest of the picnic tables that are not underneath the pavilions are first come, first serve, and it's people everywhere for July the 4th. It's a good undertaking. I get a lot of help from the local sheriff's department, fire department, from Forest County. AAA ambulance service comes out because there's so many people on the park. It's just a good, fun, safe day to be at the state park.
I saw that Artisan Pyrotechnics from right there in Wiggins is going to be doing the fireworks display. You guys invest in a pretty substantial fireworks display, don't you?
Yes, sir. It's one of the largest. I mean, I don't know about largest, but it is a 22-minute show. Is a lot of fireworks. There's over almost 3,000 shells being shot for the show, and it's a huge undertaking, and it's quite fun to do.
I noticed you got a long list of partners that are involved. It takes a lot to pull off a festive weekend like 4th of July at a state park. Like, for example, the Forest County Board of Supervisors, and et cetera. But it takes a team of people to pull this off, doesn't it?
It does. The Board of Supervisors has always supported this park very, very easily. If I need anything, they're always helpful to the park. They actually help us with the fireworks display, and then on top of that, they let the sheriff's department come out, and the fire department. The fire department has to be here to meet the fire code for the state fire marshal's office, and plus we have extra volunteers that assist us because we have to direct traffic and clean the restrooms and keep the grounds clean. It's a busy, fun day. I'm always ready for the 5th of July.
I bet you are. There's also there's some fireworks display coming on that's going to be going on, at Roosevelt State Park in Morton, Mississippi. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay. I've never gotten to be at Roosevelt State Park, but they have a good fireworks show also there. They've got Pelahatchie Pyrotechnics to do their show this year. And they also get a lot of help from their local sheriff's department and fire department. And I think even Morton PD goes out to help them because dealing with that much traffic at these parks, my park, I have a staff of like 10 people, and we need that extra help. It's hard to do special events without extra assistance and extra help just to direct people where to go.
At Roosevelt State Park, there's a bicycle parade at 5, a boat parade at 7, and the fireworks are at 9. So that's Roosevelt State Park in Morton, Mississippi. Mike, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. This has been Mike Stepp, the park administrator for Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's coming to us from Paul B. Johnson State Park, right outside Hattiesburg. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day. And as usual, stay safe, and especially with the heat, stay safe in the outdoors. Hopefully it'll cool down soon. We'll see you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you.
Mississippi.